making Perl and Lua. This isn't like, don't use this in production. Just, no. The blue thing is the actual Lua logo. And since it was about making Perl and Lua, I figured having this dinosaur with this ecstatic look on his face would be totally appropriate.
He looks kind of confused.
It totally is, but I just had the one, so had to community. Considering that we're probably mostly Perl people, or maybe not everybody has actually looked at Lua. It's a scripting language like Perl. It has an even more strange object model, if you ask me. I don't actually like it, but it's really easy to embed. Or at least that's one of its selling points. And the other thing is, considering that it's a dynamic language, it's amazingly fast. LuaJIT is one of the most interesting language implementations I've seen. It's a lot of assembly. And it actually gets as fast as some compiled languages. It's quite amazing. So that's attractive, right? Click our fingers. So what's in Lua? It has untyped containers, just like Perl. Actually, more so. It doesn't distinguish between hashes and arrays, for example. And it has just a few basic types that you don't usually see in the same way that in Perl, a string could be an integer or something, and it all sort of happens to be something behind the scenes. That's kind of the same way in Lua, not quite, because it doesn't actually represent them all at the same time. So it has a notion of undef, it has a Boolean number string, a table, we'll get to that. It has functions in the same sense that they're first order type. Some opaque thing which you can hide data behind, typically from your C application that Lua shouldn't actually worry about. And a sort of cooperative threading coroutine. So that those are, they call them threads, but they're line.
Speak up, young man.
Sorry. Okay, examples. Specifically Lua tables. They're kind of like a Perl hash, except they're also a Perl array, and they're also a dictionary.
This reminds me of PHP.
Anyway, in the background, as the implementation special cases them, if you use them as an array, probably for efficiency, it's kind of a bit of a leaky abstraction. And almost everything is tables in Lua. Just like in Perl, the hashes are sort of used for namespaces. Lua uses tables for namespaces. I'm kind of let down that Rob isn't here because he actually knows Lua, not like me sort of having dabbled with it. And one of the nicest things is it uses one indexed arrays, because Fortran taught us that that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it makes porting all that Fortran code so much easier.
And Perl does it too, right, if you want. Used to.
Still does.
Well, depends on. We still have 5.8 code.
Exactly.
So just in this example, you can initialize it. If you use it this way, it ends up in an array. And yes, 2 is the second one. You can use it as a hash. You can actually use it. You can use arbitrary object as keys, which is kind of bizarre, but it works. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty confident that if you do use a container type, it's not going to do deep comparison, but more like pointer comparison to see if it's exactly the same container, not if it represents the same information. A more actual, more or less useful example of Lua to calculate the average of a table. Looping constructs, since a table, you don't know if it's an array or a hash, or a dictionary, so there's a distinguishing between the way you iterate over each ID pairs explicitly refers to this must be an array, and that's not. It's kind of fairly close to pseudocode. So, interfacing between Perl and C is fairly easy. Some people disagree, but it's actually not that. Interfacing between Perl and something else, not cool. Because you have to sort of marshal all the way to C, and then that language needs to be good to interact with C as well, and it's just all painful. And concepts don't easily match between languages usually. So So basically the idea is, I'm just going to do whatever makes it work, not what makes it pretty or production ready. Well, more like pretty than production ready. So I came up with this. I'm going to require whatever Perl version is necessary to do my nasty things. It should like work nicely, but I wouldn't suggest using this in production. So for this I'm using the keyboard API that's introduced in 5.14, and I'm kind of doing dirty things with Perl guts, so sorry. And now I'm going to actually show some code. Sorry, bad preparation. So very simple. Can everybody read this? Very simple bit of code. PLua implements a keyword Lua that just includes a block of Lua code. So far so good. I mean, you can just basically extract that as a string, write it to a file, and run Lua of it at this level.
Is this using source filters? Like,
No.
so how are you?
Well,
How are you pulling out that?
You can basically hook into parser events and take
It's
a block
using
of
that.
code and then just feed it.
So that allows you to feed an arbitrary block.
Yes.
Yes.
pretty much. So I'm lexing this myself.
Yeah. So think development layer, but actually in core.
And not stupid crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
But without
it's super crazy.
It's
Anyway, so let's actually run this. It prints the Lua system. Surprise. So now we follow my script. And actually let's do this. We can actually do that. And it's kind of unsurprising, no suspense. That works as well. So
Did you see how fast that ran? That was like very.
really fast, right? Thanks you, Lou. So first question. How would you implement this?
Blindfolded.
I wouldn't. I'd let you do it.
Yeah. It's called regular expressions. Anyway.
Does you as a dollar?
No, it doesn't. Well,
Luckily,
so,
eh?
Anyway, now I could do something like this and cast it an integer and said, so this dot int thing, that's not a Lua thing anymore. And now that's going to throw a Perl warning because I'm just like parsing it into an integer. And that's it. And equally, if I could actually type, I can do, and it doesn't have semicolons, catches me out all the time. Sorry, too fast. I'm just assigning it to a scalar. And unsurprisingly, that works as well. So you can actually pass things back and forth. Now, I don't have a micro benchmark I could have, but basically,
Looping.
I've tried doing, well, yes, I can put it in a loop, I can benchmark it, but you can also just believe me. Do you want me to put this in a loop? Thank you. Basically, having this Lua block in a Perl loop, doing like something simple like this, so like the speed up of Lua doesn't really make much of a difference, actually turns out to be roughly the same speed as doing it in Perl. And some, like, even on something as simple as this, sometimes it's actually a little faster. Which sort of goes back to this thing here, really compiles to one Perl op in the Perl option for custom op. So invoking that doesn't really require that much work. So it's not like a whole function call or something. That's part of the reason why it's a block instead of a function.
What implementation of Lua is running?
That's LuaJIT that I compiled.
Logic.
But You can compile it against Swiss standard Lua as well. It doesn't really make a difference apart from one is fast, one is sort of fast. Now, more interestingly, if you have actual tables, so the bizarre syntax for doing this goes something like this.
So like Perl 6.
Ridiculous, redundant braces.
No, Luke's finished.
Perl will never do that. So now I'm just going to pass the table away.
You don't need a semicolon after the by X?
You went full Lua.
Thanks. Alright. And it has an
Space sensitive.
no, it should be. Okay, for some reason it's broken. Let's just do like a table like array. I'm sure that's correct.
If only we knew demos were tricky.
Yeah, fuck that. I probably just
What
have to
can
type this
possibly
exactly
go wrong?
and it's going to work, but I'm not going to do that. But that is really bizarre. Yeah, I can actually copy this. Sort of.
Yeah, set no case.
Oh yeah, I know.
What was
It's because of
different?
regular expressions. Okay,
What
so
was different?
yes, what's different? Well, right here I'm just printing it, right? And I'm not using it here. So that's still going to work. The reason why it didn't work is my Alexa is really, really fucking retarded. So the fact that I'm using curlies in here is going to mess with it. This one is a full Lua parser, which is supposed to be easy to do, but it turns out it's only relatively easy to do, so I can't do it. And so what I added now is the say at the end in Perl, and what we get, unfortunately I actually had to make Lua tables actual objects. It's mainly because they can be arrays, they can be hashes, they can be dictionaries with arbitrary keys. Perl can't do that, so we're kind of fucked in.
You're using int to pointer there?
Yes. Well, I can.
That's why it's a scalar?
There you
Yeah.
go. Now, but if you know
So
what
you
you
can
want,
really fuck with that code by changing that reference to like a different integer.
you can fuck with pretty much any excess code.
It will combine very interestingly with threads too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, like into pointer in threads is fine. You just have to deal with it yourself. In excess. I mean,
Yes,
the
with
offer.
reference handling the object thingy.
Oh, that's why you have clone skip. You know. So executing this actually gives us our hash. All I did was add the to hash because I know it's a hash, and that's okay. And equivalently, there's a to array and like all this, and I can do this either
Are there
recursively or not,
overrides?
depending on.
Do you have overrides on the object so that you could just dereference it?
I may or may not have done that. At some point, I thought of it, and then doing overload in excess is kind of painful,
Overloads, yeah.
like and superfluous. So
Yeah.
I probably didn't do it. So we can pass tables in and out. You can trust me. You can also pass them in, and it sort of magically does all the marshalling for you. Let's try something else. So, anonymous function in Lua. I know, that's kind of obvious what's going to happen.
Should be more.
It prints 14.
You know what would be cool, Steffen, is if you could make the Lua keyword return the last expression in the Lua block,
Exactly.
then
That
you
actually is kind of neat.
then you could just return a a reference to the function?
I don't think Lua does that. If it's not Lua semantics, then I can't do it, right? I suppose these things are sort of like Lua treats them as sort of the strange kind of function invocation of these blocks. So I suppose if I do an explicit return, then I could probably do it. But just the last expression, that's a language semantic thing. If I'm not going to hack LuaJIT, which I won't because I can't, that's unfortunately not going to work. But return should actually. It's just kind of awkward because it violates the way the Perl blocks work. Right? Anyway,
It's kind of like a map block, which returns the last expression.
right, but the last expression doesn't. Like I can't. That's something I can't do. I think. Anyway, so you can pass functions out of Lua into Perl. You can pass Perl functions back into Lua. You can pass Lua functions back into Lua, but you can't like wrap Perl functions for Lua because I didn't have the time yet. That's just a simple matter of programming. You can do something more interesting, such as something that doesn't really play well with indenting. Again. And it really doesn't. So you get the idea. We have with an anonymous function in Lua, function and queries it with one of its parameters. Make sense?
Yeah.
So if we call this with 42, that should generate a new function that we can then call with something else and produce something. I think this one I didn't know, but it works.
That's cool.
So it's kind of neat. Now, that's all actually kind of tedious. So to make this a little easier, there's a different keyword. Sorry, this requires a block. And it should also work.
Do you have to do all the lexing for the signature for the method?
Yes, that's all done by hand. That's actually not regular expressions. That's like lexing by hand.
What does be the parts return on this?
Sorry?
What does be the
dparse?
parts?
Probably nothing.
But it's not an extra byte.
It says Riley will consider this a security violation.
It's disappeared. It's very secure. Okay. No, that's just like a quick demo. Now, those were all the easy cases. Now, thankfully, there's more interesting cases. Now, anybody wants to guess what this is going to print?
Hopefully 42.
Actually, I think those are going to be two different contexts, and you're going to lose X.
That depends on wherever closures work.
Sure.
And it turns out, in the master branch, they don't, because it's crazy. In an experimental branch, they do, for named functions. So what this is going to print is something, and we're lucky it didn't say full, because it really could have. Because in order to figure out what is actually going on here, we have to look at how lexicals work in Perl, just a little bit. So this is from Illustrated Guts, great document. Everybody should read it. And it's basically, I can get up again. It's basically, whenever you say my $x, sorry, I can stay here. Perl is going to add an element to this array and also this array. That actually stores the content of that variable. So there was a question today when Eve talked to a bunch of people about, isn't it faster if I take the declaration out of this loop? Well, the answer is sort of, but not that much, because really the allocation is happening outside the loop. Because Perl just shoves them in here. It puts the names in one array, and puts the actual scalar pointers into this array. Now, in reality, it's slightly more complicated because in the face of recursion, you have to have multiple of these guys. And for each level of recursion, you have to push one in. And by the way, that's never going away, so it's kind of a memory loop. if we look back at this code, when we want to close over our lexical, what's going to happen is basically a closure is a function that references a lexical, a bit of lexical state that is outside the actual function, right? And we'll have one such pad entry per external variable, also for our internal function. So what's happening is we get an entry, if let's say b was declared outside of our function, we get this entry b also for our internal function that's closing over it. But we're not actually initializing anything. We're not like putting any pointer in there or doing anything. We're just noting the fact that there's an external variable that sets some flag or other thing. And then it depends on, like, there's multiple phases to all of this. So first we have a compilation that sets up this pad thing. Then when the function's actually instantiated, we take the prototype pad and copy it and actually materialize all of those, well, copy all of the external variables into our copy of the pad. So before we just had a placeholder, and then we put a copy of whatever it is at that very moment into the real pad of our closure. And then when you execute it, it's actually just going to use whatever is in your pad of your closure. Now, the thing is, you don't run into this if you only have named subs. For named functions, compilation and instantiation is all the same thing, right? Whereas for anonymous functions, whenever you create a new copy of that same anonymous function, it's going to copy the actual optree, well, the pointer to it, and create, like, instantiate the copy of the pad and instantiate all of those SV pointers.
But wait, hold on. Named closures will still have the whole pad malarkey.
Yes, but it all happens at the same time, and it's only going to happen once, right? So for all intents and purposes, they sort of get merged into one phase, compilation and instantiation.
Okay, right, I get what you're saying.
Whereas instantiation can be at runtime if you're creating, like, anonymous functions. And it turns out Lua has the same thing, which is curious. Now, basically the way I made this work in my little experimental branch, I advised Perl to capture a copy of the lexical, and I just sort of, like, suggest that to Perl by hand. That's where all the encapsulation weirdness comes in. And that's all done. Like, and I look up the actual pointer to the SV that I care about, and that's all done right before I even hand the code to Lua. So what I do is I transform the Lua source code to not have, like, $x.in, because it doesn't know what to do with that, but to have a C function call that passes in the pointer of a SV that it's supposed to access. I don't know if that made any sense, I'm sorry. So that works nice and well, unless you start doing this. Because now, since the only time we can actually do this is before Lua gets to touch the code. We can't hook into the instantiation phase of Lua codes, because again, Lua JIT is kind of like crazy territory, so I'm not touching it. And so yeah, like basically my skills end at like the Lua API, and that's
Isn't this like very similar to the same problem that we have in Perl itself? That if, for instance, if you have a named subroutine that is a closure, and it's going to return a closure around the variable that the named subroutine encloses, right? Unless it's done properly, it can fail to find that variable and not be able to bind it.
That is one tricky thing. So nesting these verbs in just like 2 levels adds extra complexity. But that is not the particular problem that breaks this kind of
Okay.
Right? The problem on this one is that I have no way to tell Lua, when you actually create this anonymous function at runtime, then can you please do this for me? Or at least I know a way of doing it. And do this for me would be capture a copy of $x the way it currently exists. So if somebody comes up with an idea on how to do that, it would be awesome. That's almost what's missing. There's like more wrapping I could do. So expose Perl functions to Lua just for completeness. The error messages that I sort of like nicely skipped away when I made mistakes, they're pretty shit. So that needs fixing. And just using a proper Lua parser to get that recognizes the specific little bits of Perl syntax that I've added, and gives us useful array messages, which just do away with that. And that would deal with a number of other problems like the funny multi-brace constructs and such, to avoid me having to write a parser by hand and see. And the other thing one could do with a proper parser is, I keep saying PLua parser, but it's not what I mean, is that you can actually parse it and say, well, you're closing over a Perl variable inside the Lua closure, don't do that, right? So it's safe to use, rather than, I don't know, it might like return undef, or it might segfault or something. And again, if somebody has an idea on how to hook into Lua closures, I was hoping on Rob, but he's not there. And one of the fun ideas I've had is, fundamentally, Lua interpreters are lightweight enough that you could just like instantiate a bunch of them, and write a parallel Lua map that will execute like context-free code in parallel, which is kind of tricky in Perl because of locking and threads are shit. That's it. Questions?
How much crack did you smoke before you came up with this idea?
I don't know, I must have talked to you.
So when do we use this here at work?
Well, so one of the crazy things here about this.
Already used it?
Where have I used it? Nowhere.
Alexander already
no
hacked it
RPM
into the
codes.
cat script.
One of the really attractive things is LuaJIT is so fast that where I normally want to implement something in C because Perl's not fast enough, it's actually kind of sort of a neat way out, because what non-booking people can know is, or probably don't know, is our rollout procedures don't involve a compile step. So we're like all the CPAN modules we use, we build RPMs for and we install, because they change relatively slowly. All the in-house business logic that we have, we roll out with fairly elaborate deploy tools so we can roll back and roll forward very efficiently. Adding a compilation phase to that is super fragile, expensive, a lot of work, slows rollouts down, lots of disadvantages. LuaJIT being this fast actually kind of makes it a sort of neat alternative for business logic. Even though, like, don't do that. Not with this anyway. Yeah. But that's the sort of semi-serious thought behind it, but it's only semi. Okay. GitHub. Sorry, yeah, no link. It's on GitHub. Apparently there's another PLua for PHP or something.
It doesn't
But
count.
yeah. I think it's the repository is called p5-PLua. And oh yeah, by the way, one thing I totally forgot to mention, there's also inline Lua that uses like the inline framework and comes with some of the craziness of the inline framework. So, and I could have started from there, which I did by ludicrously copying code wherever I thought it was a good idea. But it serves a different purpose.
Is it one of those, like, if you're going there, sir, I wouldn't start from here?
No, actually, the inline Lua code is pretty decent. The guy who wrote it actually knows